All right, good morning. We're here today with Mr. Artie Tanner. Mr. Tanner, what part of the country do you hail from?
Houston County. I live at Tennessee Ridge.
And you're a young fella. About how young are you now?
Well, I'm 79 years old.
And about to turn 80, and when did you say?
80, the 26th day of May.
Now, tell me what kind of news you found out in April of 1994. Tell me what you found out at that time.
Well, it started out a little earlier than that. I had surgery the 26th day of April, 94. My problem sort of slipped up on me, and it was caught by accident by running a PSA there at Erin in Dr. Ligon's office. My PSA ran up pretty high. He told me that normal was from 0 to 4. Mine was checking at that time about 8. He recommended a specialist in Clarksville, the name of Dr. Miles, Joseph Miles. He set me up an appointment, and I went and seen him. And by that time, it took me like a couple of weeks to get an appointment. My PSA had climbed a little higher, up to about 12. And did a biopsy, and it proved to be malignant. I was at work at Southern Gauge when my wife called and said Dr. Miles wanted to talk to me. He needed to get up there as soon as he could. I had a part in my machine I had to finish. I couldn't leave it at that time. I was afraid the machine would go off or something. Scrap the parts. I finished it up. It sort of rattled my brain a little bit. And I went on and talked to Dr. Miles, and he told me, said, now some people, said, you got 3 choices. He said, no, I'm going to back up. You got 4. He said, some people on this type of problem would choose not to do anything. And he said, that's not good. He said, some would choose pills and shots, that'd prolong it. Some would choose treatments. And he kind of laughed and said, it looked like you got about 10 more good years left in you, so I'd recommend surgery. So I studied it over, this and that. If I could get cancer out of my body, I didn't want to live with it. So I chose to have surgery. I came back to work. I didn't have to make up my mind that day. He told me, you've got plenty of time to decide on it. I said, well, I pretty much decided on today what I want to do. I came back to the shop, and I met one of my friends, and I went back to work. I told him, I said, well, it's not good. I said, it's cancer, it's malignant. He said, Artie, I won't tell no one. I said, listen, son. I said, I'm not ashamed of it. I said, this slipped up on me. I had no idea. I said, I want people to know if you're age 40, you need to have a PSA run. You need to have it done. Nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be embarrassed about. Dr. Al Mitchum told me I should have one run. Dr. Al came down with it before I did. And that's my son-in-law's dad. Dr. Mitchum's dad. That was my son-in-law. Well, so several of them there at the shop started having George Nunn. He had PSA run. Cleveland Harris had one run. Later on, as years went by, both of them had prostate cancer. I finished that part up that day, and my brain was sort of rattled, but I made a good part. That night I didn't sleep.
Well, let me ask you.
So the next day at work, I said, man, it's long about break time, 9 o'clock. I said, something's got to give. I just put myself in God's hands and Dr. Miles. I finished the day of work, I went on that night with a bed and sleep. I got a lot of grit and willpower, I still got it.
Well, let me ask you, How did you feel? Had you been feeling okay, or had you been under the weather? What led to you going to the
I
doctor?
missed that part of it. Back up here, Dr. Miles asked me, he said, Artie, your back ever hurt and your legs hurt? My wife was with me. I said, Dr. Miles, I want to tell you. I said, I work full-time at the shop, 8, 10 hours, sometimes 6 hours on Saturday. I said, all of my spare time, I'm working on my land, clearing land. I bought 133 acres that time, been cleared off of pulpwood, and I was clearing land with power saw, cutting and piling, cutting big stumps, doing a lot of heavy lifting. I said, yeah, my back hurt, my legs hurt. He said, you're crazy. This Jewel, that's what I call my wife, said, Dr. Miles, he's telling you the truth. He's a workaholic. I worked out there when it was over 100 degrees. That sun, I'm not bragging, I got so used to working in the hot sun, I could sit down on a stump out in the hot sun at 100 degrees and eat dinner. But I chose to have surgery, and that was April '94, and I hadn't been sorry of it. It rattled my brain some. I still think about it, but life goes on, and I'm still here.
And so 16 years.
16 years later, and I'm able to get up in the morning and walk, and I work on my land. I raise big gardens.
Well, let's.
Put a lot of stuff away. And
Now you mentioned walking. Now let's talk about your walking just a little bit, because you in this area have the claim to having been in the most relays for life in this area. What year was your first relay for life? I believe you told me it was 2000.
I went to a couple, but I really didn't get interested in walking till August 2000. The picture I showed you there, and that was my first time I walked at the Relay for Life. Other times I just here and there, talking to people, but my wife told me I ought to do something. That got me started. I walked 8 miles that night, and I was used to working. Man, my legs were sore. I started home. It was hard to walk in my truck. Well, I walked like 30 miles, and this girl said, Artie, you walked to Clarksville. I walked like 30 more, said you made a round trip. The most I walked in one day was 20 miles. All about the time I got my 6,000 miles in, I had planned that. One of my nephews had a four-wheeler. It was quite a journey, and he rode along in front with my cooler and my snacks and stuff. Sort of protect me, keep the dogs off of me.
Now,
I walked 20 miles that day. The hardest part of walking that day was walking downhill. I walked down Lewis Branch, down to Cooley Ford, back around Cooley Ford, Ridge, Tennessee Ridge, and back down to where I started. It's 13 miles. I went home, sort of doctored my feet up a little bit. I went back that evening, walked 7 more miles, made me 20 miles one day.
Now, when you first started walking in Relay for Life, and you've already touched on this in your last answer, but did you have a goal in mind as far as how many miles you'd like to walk when you first started walking in Relay?
I didn't have a goal. Not like 6,000, but I wanted to see how many I could get from an official relay to relay, I would like to have got 1,000 miles. When I started, my first relay was August 2000. Well, they backed it up to June, and I had to double up on some miles there in order to get my 1,000. I had 1,001 miles. And yes, that was a goal that year. The most I walked in one year was a little over 1,400 miles. A lot of them days I didn't have a lot to do. Instead of walking 4, I might walk 6, I might walk 8. Sometimes I'd leave home in the morning, say at 7 o'clock. I had to drive down maybe a couple of miles, 3 miles. I think, well, I'll get this walking in here about an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half. Nobody gonna stop, want to talk. But that got to be a problem. Sometimes it'd be 11 o'clock before I get back home.
Well, let me ask you this, the 6,000 mile goal, you told me a story out in the lobby a while ago about how you come by that. A couple of friends of yours were out. Tell me about that story.
Okay. Where I fished was down on White Oak. I had permission from this man, the old timer's passed away, Mr. B. Summers. Neil Baggett bought the land. I got permission from him to fish down there. Me and a good friend of mine, which Orman Mathis, he wasn't able to fish. He had emphysema real bad, but his heart was in it. He'd stay with me there at what we call the campsite, sit in his truck. He was on auction, and Brother Mitchell, Bob Mitchell, would come down and visit us and talk. And I said something about I'd like to walk 5,000 miles. He told me to go for 6,000, which would take me from the East Coast in New York to the West Coast in California and back. And I said, well, I'll try it. So in the spring of '05, I got my 6,000 miles in. My good friend Orman Mathis, he passed away in December. And the way I was fishing by myself over there in the pasture field. That backwater would back up over the fresh soil and give the fish, broke them up, give them a lot of fresh soil to feed them, and they feed on me. Comes in there at night, it's hard work. Waiting that backwater at waders. That time I caught 903 pounds of catfish a week fishing at night in that backwater. Now Orman, he would sit over there and worry about me. He couldn't see my light. I'd tell him, well, you just listen, I'll holler like a hoot owl every once in a while. That's about my fishing, and my good friend passed away. He didn't have cancer. His heart just played out on him, bless his soul. He was a good man. And Brother Mitchell, I respect him. He's a good person. I've talked to him a lot down there at night at the campfire. Sometimes he wouldn't come down there in the morning sometime. He said, well, I wanted to come down here and see how you was doing. I got to go to a wedding or got to go preach a funeral or something. He said, if I get a chance, I'll come back tonight and talk with you a while. His heart was in fishing, but he didn't have that much time. Sometimes I'd put him out of line, he'd catch some.
Now, let me ask you, when you reached your 6,000 mile goal, what did you do? You showed me a picture in the lobby a while ago. What did you do when you hit your 6,000 mile goal?
Well, there was an old tree in there, old churchyard there. That's where I grew up and learned to go to church and this and that. Bush Spring Church. We didn't have church no more. There's a walnut tree there in the yard. I tied this yellow ribbon and bow on that oak tree that morning before I headed down the road to walk. So when I came back up Lewis Branch, come around the curve and across the bridge, I could look and see that ribbon. It meant a lot to me. It meant a lot.
Now, you made a comment about walking out there in the lobby a while ago. Do you remember what you said about walking as far as
regardless of how I feel in the morning or evening, whenever I walk, regardless of how I feel, and everybody's going to have good days, happy days, they're going to have sad days. No matter how I feel, when I head down the trail, road walking, I get a quarter mile down the road, I'm feeling better. And I learned this. mean to sound silly about it, but I can whistle, I can sing, I can laugh, and I can cry about the same problem. You can do it. I mean, you can do it. There's no need sitting there in that chair at home and wringing them hands and crying. That ain't gonna help a bit. You can take 10 steps today, you might be able to take 20 tomorrow. And I've had so many people say, I can't walk, I've got arthritis. I said, man, that's one of the best things you do for arthritis. Yeah, if you don't have no problems, I said, you don't know what problems I got.
And of course, you hit your 6,000 mile goal, you're a big believer in walking, and of course that's a fundamental component of relay. How many miles are you at now? Ballpark figure.
How many miles have I totaled up as of date? I didn't add on this month's yet, but I've got, I know, 13,100 miles I've walked. I haven't set another goal. I've cut down on my miles some. Like I said, I've got a lot to do. I'm not going to set another goal, but I'm not going to quit walking.
Before we leave, before we part ways today, is there one parting thought that you would like to share with anybody who might be going through a struggle with cancer or have a loved one that's going through a struggle with cancer? What would you tell them?
Now, some people won't admit, and I've told them they're lying. They say, it doesn't bother me, you're lying. I said, it better your brain look like it did mine. It will anyone. Cancer is the word that scares you to death. But you've got to get grit and willpower. You see me at relays, and these pictures, I'm like this or like this. I look up the sky a lot. I'm praying. I know where I'm at. Don't never give up. Never give up. If you're going to go down swinging to the last breath. You will know, I do believe, with cancer, you will know when the time comes. I visited the funeral home in here last night, 2 ladies. One was Thamma Rogers, she passed away with cancer. One was Miss Marilyn Powell Post. They fought a hard battle. There comes a time in your life you will know. You will know when time comes. I do believe that to give up, you're ready to go.
Well, Mr. Tanner, 79 years old, 16 years survivor of cancer, 13,000 miles. We wish you many, many more years, many more miles, and it has been an honor to have you here with us today, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you. Can I say a few more words?
Sure, please.
I've had a lot of support from Houston County and from Stewart County, and I've been to Waverly, to Relay for Life. I've been to Clarksville. I got recognized in Clarksville by chance. I didn't know it till I went to get me a paper the next morning. There I was on the front page walking with that young lady and 2 little twin boys. One of them had cancer, and it rained on us that night. The spirit was high. Some people had umbrellas and some didn't. I was totally surprised by my picture being in the paper. They recognized my miles. That reporter heard me tell one lady there, and I've had a lot of support from down here, Cheryl Williams, Belinda Nunn, the Nunn family, church groups, the Ham families, Whitfords. I enjoy coming down here and Relay for Life every year at different places, the highlights of my life. I'd like to be able to go to many more.
Well, that's our wish for you. And once again, we thank you for being here with us today, and we wish you many more years and many more miles. Miss